There's something inside of me that I've struggled with for a long time. I've always had this difficulty to form meaningful relationships. I push people away. It's like I have this avoidance for intimacy. There have been periods in my own life where I've just walked away quietly into empty spaces. I think I care so much about this topic because I'm terrified of the flip side. I long to be deeply understood. There's a deeper issue here that I want to dive into. It's loneliness. It's something most of us have faced at some point in our lives. But why do we fear being alone? We would rather get an electrical shock than sit quietly in a room alone with our thoughts. We seem addicted to stimulation. Our fast-paced, always-on-the-go society has created a cultural bias that values socializing and being with others above all else. We seem to have this aversion or avoidance to solitude. You see, creativity requires time spent alone. But how can we take this basically terrifying state of being into something productive, proactive, and constructive? The art of being alone, but not lonely.
Your thoughts aren't that bad. It's not as messed up as you think it is. You're so important. Sit with yourself and find out how important you are.
Yeah, it's gonna get you.
Okay, let me explain what I'm doing here. I've lost touch with my creative self, and I've been struggling to channel the muse, if you will, to create art that really speaks to my soul. You see, when I was a kid, I loved drawing. There was this one time I was really into tattoo art, and I sold some designs to a tattoo shop, and I swear I was like 12 years old and making money from drawing. It was insane. And the thought that someone had my art on them forever invigorated me, and it's been a struggle to tap back into that passion for creation. But it's just like anything in life. You gotta start somewhere. I've spent a lot of time seeking love. As someone who turned 26 this year and has never been in a proper relationship, I feel this urge growing inside of me. I think that finding love would give my life a sense of completeness. But I also fear that I might be missing out on something truly special. I find myself in a rush to find it, as if being alone means there's something wrong with me. But the more I look for it, the further away it seems to be. Researchers at the University of Toronto have discovered that the fear of being alone often leads to settling for less satisfying relationships.
So many people think they have to be in a relationship to be happy. And it's like, no, find happiness being alone. Like it's such a beautiful thing. It doesn't have to be negative. Like, oh, I'm alone, I'm lonely. No, you're free. You do what you want. Like that. How does that not sound amazing to people? I will never understand. Being like free. How many people would say I'm free and like mean it? Like even saying that, I just feel fucking amazing. Just like even be able to say it.
Being alone, however, can be a valuable tool for growth and self-discovery. When we spend time alone, we learn to understand and care for ourselves. This understanding leads to the development of compassion, empathy, and patience, which we can use to love others. I've spent a great deal of time pondering the concept of solitude. Here's my theory about it. I see them as two sides of the same coin, and sometimes when we flip a coin, it's going to land on loneliness. Solitude, it's a state of being alone that can be positive and transformative, while loneliness is a negative experience that arises from a perceived lack of connection with others. The difference between the two lies in their relationship to our sense of self. Solitude is a chosen state of being alone that can be an empowering and meaningful experience, allowing us to connect with our inner selves and engage in activities that are important to us, leading to greater self-awareness, creativity, and personal growth. Loneliness, however, is a state of being alone that is unwanted and feels isolating. We feel disconnected from others, leading to social isolation, a lack of close relationships, and a sense of social rejection. Loneliness can be painful and lead to negative physical and mental health outcomes. But sometimes too much solitude can be harmful and has the potential to lead to loneliness. I think we need to find a balance and spend our coins on both solitude and socializing. This balance can look different for everyone. But if we spend it all on solitude or all on socializing, either one can lead us to loneliness. You brought up the idea of freedom, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd love if you could dive a bit further into that, because I feel like it does grant you this freedom that we may not even see, as you were saying. Like it's hard to see it like that sometimes when you're caught up in those thoughts of, oh, I'm all alone. Like
Mm-hmm.
you almost don't give yourself the opportunity to experience that freedom.
Yes, and experiencing that true freedom through the loneliness, like I was able to find true, genuine happiness and self-worth, self-love, and I was able to. I can say, for the last couple of years of my life, for the first time I'm at peace, and I had to go through that to get to where I'm at peace.
Travel has always been a source of creativity. 6 years ago, I rode across Japan with a mate.
It's cherry blossoms. It's a souvenir of Japan. It's very Japan, and it's the cleanest shirt I own right now.
And we filmed every day for over a month, challenging ourselves to daily vlog and upload every day. This meant editing at McDonald's, in parks, uploading in the 7-Eleven car park for that fast Wi-Fi.
My $3 umbrella is all junked up.
And camping in octopuses.
They stumbled upon this octopus. So let me give you guys the grand tour.
It's this divine motivation for creation that intimately connects us to the landscapes, culture, and people we encounter. And especially when we're in a different country that speaks a completely different language.
Iwakuni. Kintai Bridge.
It makes this experience much more intense, fueling us to create daily, capturing the essence of the journey. And ever since that trip, I've been trying to figure out how to recapture that muse. And when I'm lost like this, I usually turn to ChatGPT. Last night, I found myself deep in a hole trying to answer the question, what even is a muse? According to Greek mythology, the Muses were a group of 9 goddesses who presided over the arts and sciences. They were considered a source of knowledge embodied in most art at the time, believed to inspire creativity in artists, writers, and thinkers, and were often invoked in those seeking inspiration for their work. Some artists and writers at the time believed that travel and exploration could help them connect with the world in new and inspiring ways, and that by experiencing new cultures and landscapes, they could tap into the creative energy of the muses. There's this concept called Introjected Presence that perfectly explains this feeling of intimacy many people experience while in solitude, and especially while engaging in creative activities at the same time. For example, a poet might rely upon the supportive presence of an imaginary muse. One's passionate interests could take on the psychological significance of a lover. The poet's muse might arise as a result of their passionate interest in poetry. As a result, solitude can be sustained by the introjected presence of such a real or imagined person. I often wonder if my romance for the open road is insinuated by this concept of introjected presence, this intimacy that exists around something that you're so passionate about. And when I really think about it, if we live a life where we're just so passionate about pretty much anything that we engage in, we're embodying this idea of that introjected presence, which then alleviates the suffering of loneliness, because how can you truly be alone when you're so engaged in passionate activities that almost distract you from the potent truth that we are all alone. We come into this world alone, we die alone. It's just a truth, but it almost feels like when we are so engaged in these passionate activities, we forget that momentarily. And I don't know what it is, but I have this love for the open road, and I'm able to tap into this introjected presence that I talk about when I go to travel to new places all by myself. And it's as if these feelings of loneliness disappear. Just road tripping east of Dubbo in sort of like outback Australia here. And I just came across this really sacred Aboriginal space called Hands on a Rock. And it's such a cool little spot. It's like a perfect little campground here. Like just being here, this place is sacred. It has a certain smell to it. I think it's those rocks. It has like this misty ash smell. I'm often mesmerised by the beautiful connection Aboriginal people have with land and the romance they have for each other, becoming a part of the soul of a place, its mystique and its spiritual force. To each individual, to each group, the land itself was the nurturer, the mother, giving of all things needed. These people did not need to look for change. Their lives had purpose, substance, and joy. It's as if they perceive themselves as a part of an interconnected web of life, where all elements of nature are interdependent. This worldview emphasizes the interrelation between humans, plants, animals, and the land itself, recognizing their place within the complex system. Individuals develop a profound sense of intimacy and responsibility towards the land. And it's got me thinking about the walkabout. It's a rite of passage from ancient Aboriginal times where young adults would walk into the outback all alone. And I think it's a concept that explains how I've personally been drawn to going on these adventures, and it's got me wondering, where should I go next? When you spend real time with yourself, you can find your passion and purpose, and everything just starts lining up. I can attest to this truth. During a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat, and if you guys haven't seen that video, I'll link it here, I had so much time to think and be with myself that by day 4, I found myself doing mental life design as there was no access to pen and papers. I was just literally thinking and planning out my life in my head. It was like being in the dark room, as David calls it.
I call it the dark room, where you're alone. No cell phones, no music, no TVs, no computers. You by yourself. Very few people want to be alone anymore. They want to be around noise and people, and you can't think. Shut life off for a little bit.
I just feel like my brain is just overstimulated by all of these cheap dopamine inputs, and even the simple idea of sensory stimulation and just being present in nature and smelling the water falling from the sky and hearing the birds in the trees, that's a sense of sensory stimulation. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying I think every once in a while we need to experience the experience of nothingness or a massive reduction of our sensory input. And through this process of eliminating sensory input and sensory distractions, we reconstitute our cognitive structures, which helps us to be creative. And to do this, I want to jump in a float tank. Not having access to your senses is quite an interesting experience. Just a sensation of empty matter floating in infinite space. Float therapy isn't a unique idea. Such techniques have been used for centuries across various cultures and traditions. Some of the earliest records can be found in ancient Greek and Roman cultures. Individuals seeking spiritual and philosophical insights would sometimes withdraw from society. Rome had a practice called seclusion. Native American cultures had vision quests. These sensory deprivation practices were said to allow individuals to receive visions or messages from the gods, allowing them to access deeper levels of consciousness and insight. And such practices can actually be a powerful tool for enhancing creativity.
Your brain actually goes into a brainwave into theta. When you get to about that 30, 45 minutes, the REM kicks in and the processing in theta, and that's where Thomas Edison, he would be alone with his thoughts and he would hold a pan, and just before you go to sleep, that's when the aha moments happen for him. That's where his ideas came from. And so from this byproduct of getting into theta, float tanks and sensory deprivation are allowing people to do that type of stuff, you know?
You see, most people's daily lives are heavily structured, which can limit their ability to think in new and creative ways. However, if environmental influences are drastically reduced or changed, mental structures can be disrupted, allowing for more fluid and diverse thoughts to emerge.
All right, guys, let's fight. It's tired.
The tank can provide an environment where the level of stimulation is significantly reduced below what is considered ideal. By reducing external distractions, individuals can more easily focus on their inner thoughts and emotions, which can lead to greater self-awareness and insight.
Like, think about it. You're unplugging from the world. You're putting yourself back in the womb, so to speak. You don't have your phone. You don't have any audio. You don't have any feeling. You don't have any sight. And so you literally with you and your thoughts. With that solitude comes the aha moments, the answers, the processing, the dropping away, the chatter, the epiphany, so to speak. You know, like, it is a state that I can't explain what it's like until you try it. And I really recommend, if you ever want to try floating, push through. Like, push through your three, push through being alone with your thoughts. Your thoughts aren't that bad. It's not as messed up as you think it is. And it's only because the neural pathways are so used to distraction and getting serotonin hits and dopamine hits from flicking and looking and flicking and, oh, am I important enough, to the point where, hang on, you're so important. Sit with yourself and find out how important you are.
There are a million excuses not to go somewhere you've never been before alone. That's it, I'm going on a solo bike trip. Simply being out there in the thick of it in a foreign land where everything's unfamiliar and you're forced to see things from an altered perspective. I think this is what I need to cultivate my creativity. First night back bikepacking. It's been a very long time and we're beach camping tonight with the fire, cooking some dinner, and we have a full moon just came out tonight. Solo travel adds another dimension of transformation. It makes you more attuned to your thoughts and emotions, helping you tap into your creativity in a more focused way, taking advantage of the freedom and introspection that solitude provides to unlock new creative potential. There's always a part of me that yearns for unknown lands, for the desolation and isolation that only an epic solo adventure can command. There's something about the emptiness and solitude out there that allows me to connect with who I am without a care. As I wander down lonely, dusty roads and listen to the wind's whispers, I leave behind the noise and chaos that so often hinders. So grateful for last night's camp, guys. Pulled up to the hut last night, had a fire. It was just so cozy and silent out there. And in these moments of stillness and reflection, I find my purest self all brand new, shedding the layers and expectations that I thought I knew. But even as I journey deeper into these uncharted spaces, it feels like a part of me remains behind in these lonely places, as a fragment of my soul forever altered by what I found out there. And so I'm drawn back to these unknown lands to reconnect and repair. When you think about it, our modern society is more connected than we ever have been before. We can reach out to people at the click of a button, we can watch YouTube videos of others, and we can completely surround ourselves with this stimulation of company. It almost seems this constant bombardment of false interactive input is causing us to feel lonely, which impacts our ability to actually get out there by ourselves in nature, or just doing the things that we love on our own so we can be with our thoughts, which then ultimately allows us to cultivate this peaceful state of solitude compared to loneliness. If we can engage in solo travel or creating art, we can embody this intimacy that lessens the pain of loneliness. And I definitely felt this way when I was so engaged in creating this video. I've never poured myself into a video this much before, so definitely let me know if you liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.